All right, so everyone today should be open to page 13 and 14 in your spiral notebook. That would be this example here. Example number 1 should be glued on there, and then example 2 and 3 should be on page 14 of your science spiral. Today we're talking about happy, hopeful endings. We did already talk about this a little bit on Friday before we broke for the weekend. So let me give you the really quick version of how this goes. Your data collection has been very intentional. You started out just like a movie. You introduced the scene. You talked about the countries. You talked about the ecosystems. You talked about, introduced a few of the problems. Then you got into your 3 middle paragraphs, which were sort of like the meat of the movie. Like, here are the bad things that are happening in this region. Here are the things that humans are doing to destroy this region. And you had 3 major impacts. You have lots of support, hopefully 5 things under each of those data charts to support your assertions that those are human impacts that are destroying that region. Finally, we have a 5th paragraph, which will be your closing paragraph, where you're bringing people back up and giving them a little bit of hope by offering solutions that other organizations have come up with. And then finally, at the very, very end, this would be like the 2-minute version at the end of the movie, the part of the movie where or the part of the play when the curtain's about to close, right? And you're on the verge of just feeling like, okay, it's coming up, we're not going to die after all, right? And in the middle of the movie, the color is kind of drained out of the picture. It's now black and white, and we see a world that is falling to pieces. But at the end, that 5th paragraph, we start to see solutions. We start to see like things coming together to try to solve the problems. And that last sentence is super ultra important. I'm calling it the happily ever after ending. Sometimes we call it the happy, hopeful ending, where we leave people on this high note and we want them to feel like, hey, it's not so bad. We can do this. We want to be optimistic. We want to be hopeful. We want to end on a good note so that people know that we do make a difference when we make right choices about our environment and about the ecosystems. So, last Friday, we pretty much went over the first example, and what I want to do is kind of cut from my examples, although we will have time for that here towards the end of class, but I want to explain how you're going to search for your own personal happy, hopeful ending. Because remember, that's your homework for tonight, and it's due at the beginning of class on Wednesday, is to come up with some sort of text that you have found that asserts that there is a happy, hopeful ending for your region. So how do you do that? How do you search? Because here's the thing, when you go searching on your tablet, if you just put in there Amazon, what do you think you'll get? Will you get happy, hopeful endings? You'll get Amazon.com. You'll get, you'll be purchasing your next pair of light-up shoes. That's what you'll be doing. Or wheelies. And so you'll get the wrong thing. You've got to search using good keywords. So what I want you to do on page 13 or 14, find a space around the edges and write some of this information down about how to search. We're going to add this to the page. So go ahead, write this down. When you go to search, of course you have to put your region name in there. If you're doing the Coral Triangle, that's the only region where you might want to include a country name, because the Coral Triangle is not always called the Coral Triangle. You might want to call it Coral Reefs Indonesia, like that. Use one of the countries that's part of that Coral Triangle to help you do your searching in your search. So your region name, so you want to direct the search engine towards the region that you're researching. Then future, type the word future in that search bar, because we want to look ahead to the future. And then you're going to choose a combination of other words to add to that same search bar. For example, ecosystem might be one of those, and hopeful. So you might have Himalayas, future, ecosystem, hopeful. Those would be your search words, your keywords. And then when you search, what will pop up are websites that are about the Himalayas, the future of those ecosystems, and a hopeful, optimistic ending, or a hopeful, optimistic perspective on the future of the Himalayas. Now, you might search and you might come up with something, or maybe you don't. So then you're going to search again. See if you can come up with something that does work if it's not working. Try your region, try future, maybe go try ecosystem and solutions. And that might help to channel you towards the location where you're going to find these hopeful, happy ending words. You see, usually this happy, hopeful ending comes after somebody has talked about the solutions for that region. So when we get to the very end of all of somebody's solutions, a lot of times they'll end that with, hey, if we all work together, if we all pull our own weight, if we all stop poaching animals, they will make a comeback. They will, the ecosystem will be restored. And so you'll see these hopeful endings that somebody else has written about their solutions. So in a sense, you are, by researching, borrowing what somebody else has said at the end of their paper. And then you're going to either quote it or paraphrase and cite it. Okay, so again, these ones that are starred, you absolutely should use those in your search. Future and the region name, these ones are kind of the cards that will change. Choose two of them, and then if those two don't work, choose a different two. And then if those two don't work, choose a combination of a different two. So you're going to choose different ones to see, like, hey, do I end up coming up with the information that I need? And then you're going to go to your fifth paragraph, add a row to the bottom, just like we've added a row before, and fill in the information just like we have for the last 2 weeks. And make sure that you've copy and pasted what somebody else said, and then you'll paraphrase and quote it. All right, so that being said, let's look now at a few more examples. Last week, we ended with this example. It was the first example, and I had you highlight the name of the person who was in charge of this quote, and we highlighted the happy, hopeful part of the quote. Then, I believe we ran out of time, or maybe we had just a couple minutes to begin paraphrasing. Or did we get this exactly down? Help me know. In this class? You had to paraphrase, right? So it was your paraphrase. So I was having you kind of work on your paraphrasing skills. So you came up with some of your own ideas about how to paraphrase this. I want to show you how I quoted it, so that if you wanted to quote something in your paper, in your essay, in your paraphrase quote box, that you would know how it would look as a formatted piece of information. So go ahead and write this either on the bottom, maybe on the back of page 12, if you've run out of room. But I want you to copy this quote down. I'm going to read it aloud to you. Are you ready? Here we go. Tom Maddox, write his name down. Tom Maddox, comma, leader, and this is leader with a small L, not a capital L. Notice I made some editing changes myself on my paper because I was making some mistakes along the way. Leader of the WWF Heart of Borneo Initiative, comma, Tom Maddox, comma, leader of the WWF Heart of Borneo Initiative, comma, has hope that Borneo's ecosystems will be restored. Has hope that Borneo's ecosystems will be restored. That means brought back to its original good state. He believes, comma, quote, and then 3 dots, ellipses. And we use the ellipses because we've taken some words out of his exact quote. So whenever you've taken words out, you leave the dots there to show that this is not a complete sentence that I am quoting. I am quoting a portion of what he said. So this area is special, period. This area is special. We are going to work together, dot, 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 or ellipses, for the benefit of the species that live there and the people that live there. For the benefit of the species that live there and the people that live there. For the benefit of the species that live there and the people that live there. Then, to show that you're citing this, that it came from someone, you'll put an end quote, and then we are going to say, where did that come from? It came from Maddox, so we put in parentheses, Maddox, and the period at the end. And you'll see some blotches on my paper along the way because I was putting all kinds of punctuation in the wrong places. And when I finally sat down and started really looking at it, I was like, well, this is wrong and that's wrong. And what are you thinking? You got this all wrong. So I ended up doing what we do on a rough draft. I scribbled it down. All right, so this is one example of something you could do for the end, the last sentence of your paragraph, the happy, hopeful ending. You could end on a high note by quoting somebody who says something that's important, especially if they're an important leader in the organization, like Tom Maddox, who runs the initiative that's being implemented in that region. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next 2 examples. And what I would like for you to do is take just a minute and read through that quietly to yourself. And then I want you to highlight in those, what do you think is the happy, hopeful ending? So you're going to scan over the words, highlight or underline in examples 2 and 3, what's the happy, hopeful ending? And then I'm going to actually have you copy what I put for my paraphrase. I'm going to show you how I got my paraphrase off of my happy, hopeful ending. So I'm going to give you just about a minute to scan over that and go ahead and highlight those words right now. All right, let's go ahead and look at what really kind of is set apart as the happy, hopeful part of the text